Namaste, my dear brothers and sisters. I have with me today Aditi Kaul, who is one of the most remarkable young spiritual seekers I have come across. Besides being a spiritually very highly evolved, she is intellectually very well developed and a devotee not in the ritualistic sense. And her spiritual journey, short though it is in this life, can be of general value. And from that point of view, I'll ask her a few questions which will help us get a peep into her spiritual journey. And let me start, Aditi, with you're having finished your PhD in psychology in the year 2015. So, after having done your master's and a doctorate in psychology, you felt that what you had learned there was essentially a body of knowledge, that told you something which in turn you could use to get a job and to pass on that knowledge to your students. But there was very little in it that you could apply to your own life for your personal growth. And that is something that left you dissatisfied. And this is something which has not been just your experience. It was the experience also of Dr. Indra Sen in the 1940s when Dr. Indra Sen was professor of psychology at the University of Delhi. And in the 1930s and 40s, he had the same sort of a dissatisfaction. And that led him to ask questions from leading psychologists, including Carl Jung. But nothing satisfied him. And eventually, it was only when he discovered Sri Aurobindo, and particularly his the Life Divine, that he got the answers. And that's what made him a devotee and quit his job and go to Pondicherry. Eh, So, what I'm trying to say is that what was true about 75 years ago seems continues to be true even today. The colleges and universities, including those in India, or at least those in India, are not really giving in psychology what would help the person uh, in the personal growth, apply that knowledge to daily life. And this is something which uh, perhaps the policymakers, the powers that be, should take note of, that there is something missing which can be filled in with ancient Indian wisdom. There's something missing in the curricula of the colleges and universities that are teaching psychology in India. So, anyway, so with this sort of a discontent in 2015, uh, as a result of what looks like a coincidence, but I'm sure it was not, you discovered more or less as soon as you had finished your PhD, a course in Indian psychology, which was to be conducted by the Indian Psychology Institute in Pondicherry. And you decided to join that course. So, if we look at this decision from the point of view of the Gita, in the Gita, Sri Krishna has talked about four types of devotees: Artha, Artharthi, Jigyasu, and Jnani. And here you were inquisitive, you were curious to get a deeper insight into the truths of existence, which would help you understand psychology, get a broader and better view of psychology. So you were a jigyasu, you were curious, you were inquisitive. So, with that type of an attitude of a jigyasu, you went and did that course in Indian psychology. And you can maybe share something of how that helped you fill in that gap which you felt after having done your master's and PhD at the university.
Yes, like you rightly said, no, we get into studying something because we have something in us that wants to know, wants to understand. And especially psychology as a field, I've always felt is meant to answer the questions which human beings have about human beings. I mean, it's really, we call it in the, like, it falls under humanities and all of those things. But what I really felt when I joined the field, that it was talking too much about how to be with other human beings. It was not talking so much about how I can be with myself. How can I know myself better? So everything which I was exposed academically, it was more about discovering people, but I still felt that the lens was on the outside. that if I want to have a certain exchange with the world, there were theories which were making me feel that yes, if you use this theory, you can engage better. Or you can use this theory, so maybe you can discover or figure out the other person better, or how to handle the world, or how to function in the world. But the missing point, which at a very personal level I felt, was nobody was telling me what is my relationship with the world. So it was more focusing on my relationship with, say, the humans in the world. But what about my existence? What about me as a person, like me as an existence? So if I really want to look at inside of me or the experience I'm having in the world, so where are the theories about it? Where are the literature about how can I exist better? How can I be better? Not just in terms of being better in a relationship or be better in a job, but just be a better human being. So, looking at myself without any outer interpretation, but just as a pure existence. So, those were the questions I was looking for, especially from the field of psychology. And so, I was very curious because this is the person like I was living with, no, for 22 years when I came to psychology. That who is this person I've always been with? Like, can you tell me more about this person? I don't want to know about the world. Yes, I exist in the world, but a little more about this person, please. So that kind of curiosity I had, and like any curious student, I was looking anywhere, any course that can tell me more and all of those things. And that's how I stumbled upon the IPI course. And it sounded very nice, like because I didn't have that inner spiritual opening at that point of time, like a deeper understanding. I was just like that curious student who was like, is there more? Is there more? And the outline looked very, very impressive, at least what they were promising. And of course, they gave it. So everybody knows how my life changed after that. But I was like, this might answer what I'm looking for. It sounded very personal that, okay, they may address my own questions, like what I have about myself and not so much about other people. So that's how the curious aspect of my being got addressed as I went ahead and did that 2 semester course. So that journey of like just choosing was out of curiosity, but of course, what it led to was a discovery in itself. So that was the fundamental motive behind, like, it will address what I'm looking for. So that's how I went and did that course.
One can see almost 10 years later also today that how much was the intensity of that curiosity you had. So you were truly a jigyasu. And the gap that you felt was that although you knew something about how to deal with other people, how to help a client who comes to you for counseling, or how to improve the relationships in a family or in an organization, since your specialization was primarily in organizational behavior. So that is what you learned, how to sort of have harmonious relationships, which will improve productivity in a factory, say, for example. But very little you learned in all this about yourself, who you are, and how you can grow and evolve. There was nothing of that sort in what you learned there. And so, in other words, sort of there were plenty of skills that you learned, but very little of what you considered would be real knowledge. And you got that knowledge when you went to Pondicherry for that course on Indian psychology, apparently. So now uh, you were not that curious anymore because that gap had been filled. Now you became a jnani, the another, the other type of a devotee. But then your devotion came perhaps later after you acquired this knowledge, isn't it?
Yes, it's only now when I look back, I can have that understanding because in my head, I was always asking questions or asking for help from a unknown aspect. I had no experience as such that it's also a learned behavior. No, we all have learned while growing up, especially in an Indian setup, that there's something higher which you pray to. So you may have an idea of it, you may have a little experience of it, but so it's always like, I want to know, I want to know, can you help? Can you help? So my devotion was also very mental and a transactional devotion that I'm asking you so that you can give me something. And that something for me was knowledge or wanting to know, but it was not that who you are, what is your origin, how do you give to people. That was not my interest. I was like, I want this, but and I don't know how to interact. But even very soon, in fact, and of course, the course was so beautifully designed in a way that we were not forced to know something. It was just a space that just explore. And very soon, I discovered that my curiosity was deeper than an intellectual curiosity. It's just that because I didn't have any words for it, so I was like how we are. It's also again conditioning. No, we are taught to know that knowledge is everything, like the very outer knowledge, that the more skill set I have, or the more theories I remember, or the more psychologist names I know, the better I am in the field. So that was the also mindset I was carrying. So I wanted to, because it was Indian psychology, I wanted to know that, okay, what are the all the say the sages, what have they said, what are the theories? So that was my entry point. And very soon I realized that's not how it works. It's a fundamental shift itself. So we are not going from outside and we are going from inside out, and you have to make space for it. So it cannot be like you learn a theory like you learn in the outer world and just it happens. So my intellectual capacity also widened for much more than just outer knowledge. So I could understand the deeper meaning of what knowledge is. Knowledge can also come from just being and not just wanting to acquire more, more, more. So it's also like making space from more for less, which is much more wider and concrete, than more, which is more entangled. So that kind of understanding began to unfold in my own experience. So, and now even when I'm talking to you, it's not so much, I don't even remember what we studied for that 1 year, but I remember a certain experience that I carried and I built on that experience. And now I understand that that is what real knowledge is. So it's not just that you engage with the mind, you engage with much deeper paths, but to engage from there, first you have to know that they exist. And that was a missing point in psychology, that you should know that there's more than mind in the system, and not just like how psychology speaks about they do speak about emotions and positivity and all of those things, but still from an outer layer, which means that you should be okay for something. So there's always a for attached, there's always a sense of connectivity. And of course, we can justify it with a lot more theories. So that's a secondary aspect. But yeah, I mean, that there's a deeper knowing, there's a world beyond our sensorial understanding, and just a glimpse of that world is enough to motivate us or aspire us for life. So I think that glimpse of the other world was what was given to me in that phase of my journey. Yeah.
Made a few very important points. You started as a jigyasu, the category of devotees whom Sri Krishna calls jigyasu, the inquisitive, the curious ones. But then, after you had the knowledge formed only a sort of a foundation for experience. And it is that experience that actually made you more and more of a devotee of a different type. Something what happened to Sri Krishna also, he was given theoretical knowledge in chapter 10 of the Gita, but he was not satisfied and he wanted experiential knowledge, and that Sri Krishna gave him the 11th chapter. And as a corollary to this knowledge, which was both knowledge in chapter 10 and then became experiential in chapter 11, as a corollary to this, he became a devotee. So something similar seems to have happened to you. And that's very interesting. Of course, Artha and Artharthi you never were, although those are perhaps the two commonest types of devotees, those who are miserable and those who want a material benefit. Uh, Now, having done that, then like any one who has that type of a foundation would also turn to some action. And you dabbled with a combination of further sort of exploration within and some action in the pious environment of Pondicherry and Auroville for a few years before you took up a formal job with Oro University in August 2019. And of course, that did not last very long because, again, uh, probably that didn't leave you enough time for self exploration. And therefore, you quit within a year and uh, settled down for being just a part time teacher taking online classes, which of course went very well also with the COVID atmosphere, when online classes were becoming the norm rather than an exception. So anyway, so uh, then came another phase when I came in contact with you in November 2021 when you came to Sri Aurobindo Ashram Delhi branch, and although I mean you were doing sort of something by way of action, but then I truly saw sort of that action developing and, as you shared with me, reach a new sort of a level once you started helping me with the online course on teaching yoga while you were at Sri Aurobindo Ashram uh, during 21 and almost half of 2022. Uh, Now, here I find another thing happening. Krishna has talked about in the Gita about the three streams of yoga. And Sri Aurobindo makes a very emphatic point that one can start with any of these three streams depending upon the inclinations and temperament of the seeker. That sort of flexibility is available. But at the same time, if you continue long enough and sincerely enough on any of these three paths, eventually you will end up doing all the three. So the triune, in fact, is one. So although you uh, started with in the path of knowledge, trying to acquire that knowledge, and that knowledge led to devotion. So your devotion was a corollary to knowledge. But then, what is the use of all this knowledge and devotion if I don't do anything for the object of my devotion? That's what led to action. And that found a sort of a, an avenue in which you felt deeply involved after you came to Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Delhi branch. Uh, Now, and that's the way I would look at your journey. Uh, Now that another 2 years have passed since then, mm, how do you think have you evolved in this fusion of knowledge, devotion, and action? And how you feel that you are evolving through a combination of all the fusion of all these three major sort of streams as they are looked at, but actually the triune is one. You're just using the different tools that we have been giving the hands, the heart, and the head, which work together, seldom work independently. So you're using all these three basic instruments for knowing more and more yourself, which indirectly becomes knowing more and more the divine.
Yeah, I mean, we all know that this is like a kind of an unending journey. We can't say that now, like, all three have combined and now it's done. But of course, as I explored more, and especially my experience at the Delhi ashram, I also feel that there's a lot of, like, of course, I can just speak for myself. There's a lot of baggage around the whole idea of action, that what am I contributing in the world, or how am I interacting with the world, and it also comes from that fact, like when we started talking about it, that academics give us knowledge to how to act in the world. So it's also from the beginning, we are like, if I'm not contributing, I'm not doing anything. So even before there's a sense of stability within, like if you're venturing out into a new space. So if, for example, if I've taken up that journey of self-exploration, so in the beginning, till the time I didn't have a deeper understanding, I was very harsh with myself that, oh, I'm just acquiring knowledge, or I'm spending too much time with my own self, I'm trying to figure out world, what am I doing, what is my contribution, see the world, they're progressing so far. So now when I look back, I realize that I was not compassionate enough with my own self to give myself that space to at least build a base which I can then offer to the world. Because as in, I can only offer which I have. But our general understanding is borrow from somewhere, give it to the world, just put your identity. It's like a stamp. It came from me. And that's where we are so action obsessed in the world that, oh, I studied, okay, I will put it here. And then in between, I'm like, okay, this is my identity kind of a thing. So to even get out of that loop and realize that, okay, I can just take that time, action. Now I can say that action is inevitable because you are a part of the world and the world is moving and you're moving with them, and moving inherently means exchange. But all of us are allowed to take a step back and see that today I may not be interacting with the world in a transactionally sense that, oh, this is a event that came out of me, or this is an action that came out of me, but my existence is what is getting more purified, more stable. And if I have a full plate, I can offer it to the world. But if I'm still cooking, I want to offer half-cooked food, nobody is a taker for a half-cooked food. And then I'm like, oh, I'm good for nothing. So the confusion that happens is that it's not enough time for self-work, not enough worthy thing to contribute in the world, and it's always a state of flux and confusion. And I have suffered from it for a long time. But when I start, so all of those years which you're talking about, like 6, 7 years of just trying to act in the world, come back, be confused, and all those ups and downs. But what the place there offered me was it was a constant offering, which also helped me discover my strengths and also understand that what is my proportion. I might be wanting to be 70% on my own and 30% interacting with the world, and that's fine. I don't have to feel the pressure of that, oh, the world is performing, I have to be there 100%. But that 30% should have the 100% of that 70%. So it's like having your own maths and seeing that stability that this is all my offering. My offering cannot be quantified. My offering just has to be from a deeper space. So I may say in terms of I may be doing just one thing in the world a day, which is called or termed as action in a very narrow sense of what world understands as action. Your existence is also an action. And to come to a point of understanding that experientially, I had to make a lot more effort that you can exist from a space which is much more better. But of course, and also why now I speak about action, which even people who knew me from before, when I speak so much passionately about action, is like, oh, is that the same person who's talking about interacting in the world? Who was like, I was like, no, I'm still the same person. Now I just realized that if I really truly have something, by nature, I would want to share with the world because that's the nature of love. If I have it, I want to give it. So if I have a certain experience, which is much more not for me to have an identity that, oh, this is my experience, this is an experience. So which is happening inside of me, and by nature, it will be offered to you. So an indicator of a effortless action is that it is based in knowledge and devotion. So then there's no extra effort for action because it's not separate from like how you said that all three are one. So an action that is rooted in knowledge and devotion is a very effortless action. It has no quantity, it has no parameters that this much you have to do, that much you have to do. It's like I have, you take. If I feel that, oh, it's like decreasing, I'll just take a step back, refill, and then again come to the world. So it's a very continuous, effortless exchange with the world when knowledge and devotion are like the base of action. And that's a recent discovery, and that's what I'm working on. So all that distinctions in the head that am I contributing, am I not contributing? These are all surface ideas which all of us experience because no matter how much we stay inside, for the outside, we need the outer instrument. So it's like, how does this three aspects of the same being can the more they interact within, the more they come out, and they also then bridge our outer and inner. So we become better. So action comes through me, contributes to me, and then becomes better. And then it's like keep on adding, keep on adding. So you keep getting richer, wider, deeper, and then it's all one. Then slowly the distinction is not there so much that, oh, now it's like now, oh, I'm talking to you. Oh, now I'm on my own. So that oneness which we talk about, we start getting a glimpse of it. And that's the beauty of action rooted in a much deeper sense than action emerging from a need for identity or a fear of existence. So that's an indicator which all of us can have for ourselves. And that's what I discovered in my exploration. So yeah, I think I've given a pretty long answer for a short question, but that's where I am right now. So I thought I'll share.
But every bit of this answer was worth every minute that you spent on it, uh, because you brought out so many important points. And I may not be able to even put them so effectively and summarize them, but I'll make a little attempt. Action is inevitable, as you said. And that is what Sri Krishna has also said. And that's why he says that to set the right example, although uh, the divine need not work, Sri Krishna says, I still work to set the right example. So action is inevitable. But then what type of action? Again, you made a very beautiful point when you said that is action just something to be seen, which can be seen by everybody? That is, does it have to be outer action? And does it have to be the type of action which only bears my rubber stamp, borrowed from this side and passed on that side with after stamping it with my stamp? Does it have to be this type of action? Or instead, why not let it be the type of action which has grown within me? I started from scratch as a result of a little knowledge that I acquired and which to which I added my own experience. Now this is knowledge which has been created within me. It doesn't just have that rubber stamp, it has that individuality. It may be the same type of knowledge, that same vidya, which all the rishis and the saints and sages have acquired through their experience. But then, so far as you are concerned, for you, it is your individual original creation. So it grew within you with a little trigger, a little hint from here and there, and then your own uh, sadhana, your own inner journey. So this inner journey or inner work is what made you ripe for that outer work. Uh, so that I mean, sort of a stage came when you felt that, well, it doesn't have to just stay within me. Now I have can pass it on as an offering, pass it on uh, to the world, seeing the divine in the world. So for you, it was all sort of a continuum. You and the rest of the world, there was a continuum there of unity, and within you, the knowledge, the experience, the devotion, and the action were another continuum. So the boundaries dissolved, and that is the type of action, as you said, action rooted in knowledge and devotion. That is the type of action which you have been doing to a limited extent. And as you said, whether it is 30%, but doesn't matter if it is 30%, but it is 100% of that 30%. So that is what matters. And of course, I've seen, I mean, over the last few years, as is inevitable, the balance between what we may call, although erroneously, inner work and outer work, the balance has been uh, sh- uh, shifting even in you as an individual. Sometimes more inner and a little outer, and sometimes more outer and less inner, maybe. But all the same, uh, that fusion I can see, I mean, evolving, which was brought out by you so beautifully, where even the boundary between inner work and outer work seems to dissolve. Anything else that you would like to add as an afterthought on your spiritual journey?
No, I just felt the way you like said it. No, I was like as if I've really achieved something in the outer world, and now I'm like reflecting, oh, many years like that. But it's still like I'm figuring it out. Like I still don't have anything very concrete to say in the outer world, or this is my work, or that is my work. But the kind of courage and perseverance I feel in terms of being there in the world, that's the biggest change. So one thing very important we can conclude with is that be it inner work, be it outer work, nothing drastically changes on the outside. So even if we are carrying an idea that if I discover something in me, the world will change, the world is always the same. It's like my perception of the world will change because something in me has shifted. So there is no tangible shift in the outside world, but the more deeper shift inside appears in a way that it helps us see the world in a better light. So it's not that the world was very bad first and now it's good. It's because I shifted something inside, so I have a better view of the world now. So that's a very good indicator which we can offer to the world that the world is always like that. It's the more we get a clarity of our own inner system and our own interactions within, we see the world better. We can see, like, if I see the love within, I can see the love in the world. If I see that sense of courage inside, I can see much more courage in the world. Like, it's really like that mirror, and all of us have somewhere or the other experienced it. So, just having our own balance and making friends with time. I think one thing which is very important on this journey is to not get entangled with the time and conditioning, because then it really brings us down. Because we then are suddenly our surface nature gets activated and we feel that, oh, I have lost this much time, or I'm lagging behind. Because if you are seeking the eternal, you have to move beyond the concept of time and space. So if that's what we can understand experientially, then the world is there for us. I mean, then we don't have, of course, we all have a surface nature to deal with. It's not that I don't suffer or I don't cry or I'm like, oh no, what's happening in the world. but you can see the distance, and that distance can be covered with love rather than fear. So that's the journey all of us are in. We continue walking the path with much more joy than suffering. Like that's, I think that's the message. So yeah, I think that can be all.
Thank you for repeating that expression, which I've heard from you earlier also. Let's make friends with time. Because time is one of the four aids that Sri Aurobindo has talked about on the path of yoga. The aspiration should be intense but not impatient. It will take time. So instead of seeing time as something which we are losing or being in a great hurry because time doesn't wait for us, let's make friends with time. It's an aid and a very important aid without which one can't. So this is a path on which one can't be in a hurry. In short, so time is required. Thank you, Aditi, for sharing your spiritual journey, which I'm sure will inspire lot more. And may the mother give you uh, that aspiration, which she has put very beautifully. The one aspiration worth having is to know thee and to serve thee better every day. So let that flame of aspiration stay alive in you. Thank you.